David Eric Grohl is an American musician. He is the founder of the rock band Foo Fighters, for which he is the singer, guitarist, and primary songwriter. He was the drummer for Nirvana from 1990 to 1994. At 17, Grohl joined the punk rock band Scream after the departure of their drummer Kent Stax. Grohl became the drummer for Nirvana after Scream broke up in 1990. Nirvana's second album, Nevermind, was the first to feature Grohl on drums and became a worldwide success. After Nirvana disbanded following the death of lead singer Kurt Cobain in April 1994, Grohl formed Foo Fighters as a one-man project. The first Foo Fighters album was released in 1995, and a full band was assembled to tour and record under the Foo Fighters name. They have released 10 studio albums. Grohl is the drummer and co-founder of the rock supergroup Them Crooked Vultures, and has recorded and toured with Queens of the Stone Age. He has also participated in the side projects Late and Probit. Grohl began directing Foo Fighters music videos in 1997 and released his debut documentary, Sound City, in 2013. It was followed by the documentary miniseries Sonic Highways and the documentary film What Drives Us. In 2021, Grohl released an autobiography, The Storyteller, Tales of Life and Music. In 2022, Grohl and the Foo Fighters starred as themselves in the comedy horror film Studio 666. In 2010, he was described by classic rock drummer CO author Ken McAuliffe as one of the most influential rock musicians of the last 20 years. Grohl was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as part of Nirvana in 2014 and as a member of Foo Fighters in 2021. Early life. David Eric Grohl was born in Warren, Ohio, on January 14, 1969, the son of teacher Virginia Jean and news writer James Harper Grohl. He is of German, Irish, and Slovak descent. In addition to being an award-winning journalist, James had also served as the special assistant to Senator Robert Taft Jr. and was described as a talented political observer who possessed the ability to call every major election with uncanny accuracy. When he was a child, Grohl's family moved to Springfield, Virginia. When he was 7, his parents divorced, and he was subsequently raised by his mother. At the age of 12, he began learning to play guitar. He grew tired of lessons and instead taught himself, eventually playing in bands with friends. He said, "I was going in the direction of faster, louder, darker while my sister, Lisa, 3 years older, was getting seriously into new wave territory. We'd meet in the middle sometimes with Bowie and Susie and the Banshees." At 13, Grohl and his sister spent the summer at their cousin Tracy's house in Evanston, Illinois. Tracy introduced them to punk rock by taking the pair to shows by a variety of punk bands. His first concert was Naked Ray Egun at the Cubby Bear in Chicago in 1982. Grohl recalled, "From then on we were totally punk. We went home and bought Maximum Rock'n'Roll and tried to figure it all out." In Virginia, he attended Thomas Jefferson High School as a freshman and was elected class vice president. In that capacity, he managed to play pieces of songs by punk bands like Circle Jerks and Bad Brains over the school intercom before his morning announcements. His mother decided he should transfer to Bishop Ireton High School in Alexandria because his cannabis use was lowering his grades. He stayed there for 2 years, beginning with a repeat of his first year. After his second year, he transferred yet again to Annandale High School. While in high school, he played in several local bands, including a stint as guitarist in a band called Freak Baby. During this period, he taught himself to play drums. When Freak Baby kicked out its bass player and reshuffled its lineup, Grohl switched to drums. The reconstituted band renamed itself Mission Impossible. Grohl said he did not take drumming lessons and instead learned by listening to Rush and punk rock. Rush drummer Neil Peart was an early influence. When I got 2112 when I was 8 years old, it fucking changed the direction of my life. I heard the drums. It made me want to become a drummer. During his developing years as a drummer, Grohl cited John Bonham as his greatest influence, and eventually had Bonham's three-ring symbol tattooed on his right shoulder. Mission Impossible rebranded themselves fast before breaking up, after which Grohl joined the hardcore punk band Dane Bramage in December 1985. Dane Bramage ended in March 1987 when Grohl quit without warning to join Scream, having produced the I Scream Not Coming Down LP. Many of Grohl's early influences were at the 930 Club, a music venue in Washington, D.C. He said, "I went to the 930 Club hundreds of times. I was always so excited to get there, and I was always bummed when it closed. I spent my teenage years at the club and saw some shows that changed my life." Career. Scream. As a teenager in D.C., Grohl briefly contemplated joining shock rockers Gwar, who were looking for a drummer. At age 17, Grohl auditioned with local Washington, D.C., favorites Scream to fill the vacancy left by the departure of drummer Kent Stax. In order to be considered for the position, Grohl lied about his age, claiming he was older. To Grohl's surprise, the band asked him to join, so he dropped out of high school in his junior year. He has been quoted as saying, "I was 17 and extremely anxious to see the world, so I did it." Over the next 4 years, Grohl toured extensively with Scream, recording a live album and 2 studio albums, No More Censorship and Fumble, on which Grohl penned and sang vocals on the song Gods Look Down. During a Toronto stop on their 1987 tour, Grohl played drums for Iggy Pop at a CD release party held at famed club the El Mocambo. In 1990, Scream unexpectedly disbanded mid-tour following the departure of bassist Skeeter Thompson. Nirvana. While playing in Scream, Grohl became a fan of the Melvins and eventually befriended them. During a 1990 tour stop on the West Coast, Melvins guitarist Buzz Osborne took his friends Kurt Cobain and Chris Novoselic, of the band Nirvana, to see Scream. Following the breakup of Scream, Grohl called Osborne for advice. Osborne informed him that Nirvana was looking for a drummer and gave Grohl the phone numbers of Cobain and Novoselic, who invited Grohl to Seattle to audition. Grohl passed the audition and soon joined the band. Novoselic later said, "We knew in 2 minutes that he was the right drummer." Grohl told Q, "I remember being in the same room with them and thinking, what? That's Nirvana? Are you kidding? Because on their record cover they looked like Psycho Lumberjacks. I was like, what, that little dude and that big motherfucker? You're kidding me." When Grohl joined Nirvana, the band had already recorded several demos for the follow-up to their debut album Bleach, having spent time recording with producer Butch Vig in Wisconsin. Initially, the plan was to release the album on Sub Pop, but the band received a great deal of interest based on the demos. Grohl spent the initial months with Nirvana traveling to various labels as the band shopped for a deal, eventually signing with DGC Records. In the spring of 1991, the band entered Sound City Studios in Los Angeles to record Nevermind. Nevermind exceeded all expectations and became a worldwide commercial success. At the same time, Grohl was compiling and recording his own material, which he released on a cassette called Pocket Watch in 1992 on indie label Simple Machines. Rather than using his own name, Grohl released the cassette under the pseudonym Late. In the later years of Nirvana, Grohl's songwriter contributions increased. In Grohl's initial months in Olympia, Cobain overheard him working on a song called Color Pictures of a Marigold, and the two subsequently worked on it together. Grohl would later record the song for the Pocket Watch cassette. Grohl stated in a 2014 episode of Foo Fighters, Sonic Highways that Cobain reacted by kissing him upon first hearing a demo of Alone and Easy Target that Grohl had recently recorded. During the sessions for In Utero, Nirvana decided to re-record Color Pictures of a Marigold and released this version as a B-side on the heart-shaped box single, titled simply Marigold. Grohl also contributed the main guitar riff for Scentless Apprentice. Cobain admitted in a late 1993 MTV interview that he initially thought the riff was kind of boneheaded, but was gratified at how the song developed. Cobain said that he was excited at the possibility of having Novoselic and Grohl contribute more to the band's songwriter. Prior to their 1994 European tour, the band scheduled session time at Robert Lang Studios in Seattle to work on demos. For most of the three-day session, Cobain was absent, so Novoselic and Grohl worked on demos of their own songs. They completed several of Grohl's songs, including future Foo Fighters songs Exhausted, Big Me, February Stars, and Butterflies. Cobain arrived on the third day and the band recorded a demo of You Know You're Right. It was Nirvana's final studio recording. On April 8, 1994, Cobain was found dead of a self-inflicted shotgun wound at his home. 2 decades later, on April 10, 2014, Grohl was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a member of Nirvana. Foo Fighters. Following Cobain's death in April 1994, Grohl retreated, unsure what to do. In October 1994, he scheduled studio time at Robert Lang Studios, and quickly recorded a 15-track demo. With the exception of a single guitar part on Ecstatic played by Greg Dully of the Afghan Whigs, Grohl performed all of the instruments himself. Grohl wondered if his future might be in drumming for other bands. In November, Grohl took a brief turn with Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, including a performance on Saturday Night Live. He declined an invitation to become Petty's permanent drummer. Grohl was also rumored as a possible replacement for Pearl Jam drummer Dave Abruzzese and performed with the band for a song or two at 3 shows during Pearl Jam's March 1995 Australian tour. However, by then, Pearl Jam had already settled on ex-Red Hot Chili Peppers drummer Jack Irons, and Grohl had other solo plans. Grohl's demo received interest from major labels. Nirvana's A&R rep Gary Gersh was now president of Capitol Records and lured Grohl to sign with the label. Grohl did not want the effort to be considered the start of a solo career, so he recruited other band members, former Germs and touring Nirvana guitarist Pat Smear and 2 members of the recently disbanded Sunny Day Real Estate, William Goldsmith and Nate Mendel. He and Novoselic decided against Novoselic joining. Grohl said it would have felt really natural for them to work together again, but would have been uncomfortable for the other band members and placed more pressure on Grohl. Rather than re-record the album, Grohl's demo was mixed by Rob Schnapf and Tom Rothrock and was released in July 1995 as Foo Fighters' self-titled debut album. During a break between tours, the band entered the studio and recorded a cover of Gary Numan's Down in the Park. In February 1996, Grohl and his then-wife Jennifer Youngblood made a brief cameo appearance on the X-Files' third season episode Pusher. After touring for the self-titled album for more than a year, Grohl returned home and began work on the soundtrack to the 1997 movie Touch. Grohl performed all of the instruments and vocals himself, save for vocals from Verica Salt singer Louise Post on the title track, keyboards by Barrett Jones on one track, and vocals and guitar by X's John Doe on This Loving Thing. Grohl completed the recording in 2 weeks, and immediately joined Foo Fighters to work on their follow-up. During the initial sessions for Foo Fighters' second album, tension emerged between Grohl and drummer William Goldsmith. According to Goldsmith, Dave had me do 96 takes of one song, and I had to do 13 hours worth of takes on another one. It just seemed that everything I did wasn't good enough for him, or anyone else. Goldsmith also believed that Capitol and producer Gil Norton wanted Grohl to drum on the album. With the album seemingly complete, Grohl headed home to Virginia with a copy of the rough mixes and found himself unhappy with the results. He wrote and recorded a few new songs, Walking After You and the hit single Everlong, alone at a studio in Washington, D.C. Inspired by the session, Grohl opted to move the band, without Goldsmith's knowledge, to Los Angeles to re-record most of the album with Grohl on drums. After the sessions were complete, Goldsmith announced his departure from the band. Grohl said later expressed regret, and said that there were a lot of reasons it didn't work out, but there was also a part of me that was like, I don't know if I'm finished playing the drums yet. The second Foo Fighters album, The Color and the Shape, was released in May 1997 and cemented Foo Fighters as a staple of rock radio. It produced several hit singles, including Everlong, My Hero, and Monkey Wrench. Prior to the album's release, former Alanis Morissette drummer Taylor Hawkins joined on drums. The following September, Smear left the band, citing a need to settle down following a lifetime of touring. Smear was replaced by Grohl's former Scream bandmate Franz Stahl. Stahl was fired prior to recording of Foo Fighters' third album and was replaced by touring guitarist Chris Shiflett, who later became a full-fledged member during the recording of One by One. Grohl's life of non-stop touring and travel continued with Foo Fighters' popularity. During his infrequent pauses he lived in Seattle and Los Angeles before returning to Alexandria, Virginia. It was there that he turned his basement into a recording studio where the 1999 album There Is Nothing Left to Lose was recorded. It was recorded following the departure from Capitol and their former president Gary Gersh. Grohl described the recording experience as intoxicating at times because the band members were left completely to their own devices. He added, "One of the advantages of finishing the record before we had a new label was that it was purely our creation. It was complete and not open to outside tampering." In 2000, the band recruited Queen guitarist Brian May to add some guitar flourish to a cover of Pink Floyd's Have a Cigar, a song which Foo Fighters previously recorded as a B-side. The friendship between the two bands resulted in Grohl and Taylor Hawkins being asked to induct Queen into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2001. Grohl and Hawkins joined May and Queen drummer Roger Taylor to perform Tie Your Mother Down, with Grohl standing in on vocals for Freddie Mercury. May later contributed guitar work for the song Tired of You on the ensuing Foo Fighters album, as well as on an unreleased Foo Fighters song called Knucklehead. Near the end of 2001, Foo Fighters returned to the studio to work on their fourth album. After 4 months in the studio, with the sessions finished, Grohl accepted an invitation to join Queens of the Stone Age and helped them to record their 2002 album Songs for the Deaf. After a brief tour through North America, Britain, and Japan with the band and feeling rejuvenated by the effort, Grohl recalled the other band members to completely re-record their album at his studio in Virginia. The effort became their fourth album, One by One. While initially pleased with the results, in another 2005 Rolling Stone interview, Grohl admitted to not liking the record. 4 of the songs were good, and the other 7 I never played again in my life. We rushed into it, and we rushed out of it. On November 23, 2002, Grohl achieved a historical milestone by replacing himself on the top of the Billboard Modern Rock chart. When You Know You're Right by Nirvana was replaced by All My Life by Foo Fighters. When All My Life ended its run, after a 1-week respite, No One Knows by Queens of the Stone Age took the number 1 spot. Between October 26, 2002 and March 1, 2003, Grohl was in the number 1 spot on the modern rock charts for 17 of 18 successive weeks, as a member of 3 different groups. Grohl and Foo Fighters released their 5th album In Your Honor on June 14, 2005. Prior to starting work on the album, the band spent almost a year relocating Grohl's home-based Virginia studio to a brand new facility, dubbed Studio 606, located in a warehouse near Los Angeles. Featuring collaborations with John Paul Jones of Led Zeppelin, Josh Homme of Queens of the Stone Age and Norah Jones, the album was a departure from previous efforts, and included one rock and one acoustic disc. Foo Fighters' sixth studio album Echoes, Silence, Patience and Grace was released on September 25, 2007. It was recorded during a 3-month period between March 2007 and June 2007, and its release was preceded by the first single The Pretender on September 17. The second single, Long Road to Ruin, was released on December 3, 2007, followed by the third single, Let It Die, on June 24, 2008. On November 3, 2009, Foo Fighters released their first Greatest Hits collection, consisting of 16 tracks including a previously unreleased acoustic version of Everlong and 2 new tracks Wheels and Word Forward, which were produced by Nevermind's producer Butch Vig. Grohl has been quoted saying the Greatest Hits is too early and can look like an obituary. He does not feel they have written their best hits yet. Foo Fighters' seventh studio album, Wasting Light, was released on April 12, 2011. It became the band's first album to reach number 1 in the United States. Despite rumors of a hiatus, Grohl confirmed in January 2013 that the band had completed writing material for their follow-up to Wasting Light. Grohl and members of Foo Fighters sometimes perform as a cover band Chevy Metal, as they did in May 2015 at Conejo Valley Days, a county fair in Thousand Oaks, California. On November 10, 2014, Foo Fighters released their 8th studio album, Sonic Highways, which reached number 2 in the United States. The album features 8 songs, each inspired by a different U.S. city's musical history and culture researched by Grohl himself. On June 12, 2015, while playing a show in Gothenburg, Sweden, Grohl fell off the stage, breaking his leg. He left temporarily and returned with a cast to finish the concert. Afterward, the band cancelled the remainder of its European tour. To avoid having to cancel the band's upcoming North American tour, Grohl designed a large elevated throne which would allow him to perform on stage with a broken leg. The throne was unveiled at a concert in Washington, D.C. on July 4, where Grohl used the stage's video screens to show the crowd video of him falling from the stage in Gothenburg as well as X-rays of his broken leg. Beginning with the show on July 4, Foo Fighters began selling new tour merchandise, rebranding the band's North American tour as the Broken Leg Tour. In 2016, Grohl lent his throne to Axl Rose of Guns N' Roses after Rose broke his foot. He lent it again in 2021 to Darren Wall of the Seattle metal band Greyhawk, after Wall was shot in the leg. On July 31, 2015, Grohl posted a personal reply to Fabio Zaffanini, Marco Sabiu, and the 1,000 participants of the Rockin' 1000 project in Cesena, Italy, thanking them for their combined performance of the Foo Fighters song Learn to Fly from their 1999 album There Is Nothing Left to Lose, indicating, "I promise see you soon." On November 3, Foo Fighters performed in Cesena, where Grohl invited some Rockin' 1000 members onto the stage to perform with the band. On September 15, 2017, Foo Fighters released their 9th studio album Concrete and Gold, which became the band's second album to debut at number 1 on the Billboard 200. After the Concrete and Gold tour, Grohl announced that the band would be taking a break. The 10th Foo Fighters studio album, Medicine at Midnight, was delayed by the COVID-19 pandemic. It was released on February 5, 2021, and debuted at number 3 on the Billboard 200. The Medicine at Midnight tour was cancelled following the death of Hawkins on March 25, 2022. Other work. Musical projects and contributions. Apart from his main bands, Grohl has been involved in other music projects. In 1992, he played drums on Buzz Osborne's Kiss-styled solo EP King Buzzo, where he was credited as Dale Nixon, a pseudonym that Greg Ginn adopted to play bass on Black Flag's My War. He also released the music cassette Pocket Watch under the pseudonym Late on the now-defunct indie label Simple Machines. In 1993, Grohl was recruited to help recreate the music of the Beatles' early years for the movie Backbeat. He played drums in an all-star lineup that included Greg Dully of the Afghan Whigs, indie producer Don Fleming, Mike Mills of REM, Thurston Moore of Sonic Youth, and Dave Pirner of Soul Asylum. A music video was filmed for the song Money while Grohl was with Nirvana on their 1994 European tour. Footage of Grohl was filmed later and included. Later in 1994, Grohl played drums on 2 tracks for Mike Watt's Ballhawk or Tugboat. In early 1995, Grohl and Foo Fighters played their first U.S. tour, the Ring Spiel Tour, both opening for Watt and playing with Eddie Vedder as Watt's supporting band. In 1997, Grohl played a few songs with David Bowie for Bowie's 50th birthday concert, which was recorded and shown on pay-per-view later that year. During the early 2000s, Grohl spent time in his basement studio writing and recording a number of songs for a metal project. Over the span of several years, he recruited his favorite metal vocalists from the 1980s, including Lemmy of Motorhead, Konrad Kronoslant from Venom, King Diamond, Scott Weinrich, Snake of Voivod and Max Cavalera of Sepultura, to perform the vocals for the songs. The project was released in 2004 under the nickname Probit. Also in 2003, Grohl stepped behind the kit to perform on Killing Joke's second self-titled album. The move surprised some Nirvana fans, given that Nirvana had been accused of plagiarizing the opening riff of Come As You Are from Killing Joke's 1984 song 80s. However, the controversy failed to create a lasting rift between the bands. Foo Fighters covered Killing Joke's Requiem during the late 1990s, and were even joined by Killing Joke singer Jaz Coleman for a performance of the song at a show in New Zealand in 2003. Also in 2003, at the 45th Annual Grammy Awards, Grohl performed in an ad hoc supergroup with Bruce Springsteen, Elvis Costello, and Steven Van Zandt for a performance in tribute of then recently deceased singer-guitarist Joe Strummer. Grohl lent his drumming skills to other artists during the early 2000s. In 2000, he played drums and sang on a track, Goodbye Lament, from Tony Iommi's album I Am I. In 2001, Grohl performed on Tenacious D's debut album, and appeared in the video for lead single Tribute as a Demon. He later appeared in the duo's 2006 movie Tenacious D in The Pick of Destiny as the Devil in the song The Pick of Destiny, and performed on its soundtrack. He also performed drums for their 2012 album Rise of the Phoenix. In 2002, Grohl helped Chan Marshall of Cat Power on the album You Are Free and played with Queens of the Stone Age on their album Songs for the Deaf. Grohl also toured with the band in support of the album, delaying work on the Foo Fighters album One by One. In 2004, Grohl drummed on 6 tracks for Nine Inch Nails' 2005 album With Teeth and played percussion on One More, later returning to play drums on The Idea of You from their 2016 EP Not the Actual Events. He also drummed on the song Bad Boyfriend on Garbage's 2005 album Bleed Like Me. Most recently, he recorded all the drums on Juliet and the Licks' 2006 album Four on the Floor and the song For Us from Pete Yorn's 2006 album Nightcrawler. Beyond drumming, Grohl contributed guitar to a cover of Neil Young's I've Been Waiting for You on David Bowie's 2002 album Heathen. In June 2008, Grohl was Paul McCartney's special guest for a concert at the Anfield Football Stadium in Liverpool, in one of the central events of the English city's year as European Capital of Culture. Grohl joined McCartney's band singing backup vocals and playing guitar on Band on the Run and drums on Back in the USSR and I Saw Her Standing There. Grohl also performed with McCartney at the 51st Annual Grammy Awards, again playing drums on I Saw Her Standing There. Grohl also helped pay tribute to McCartney at the 2010 Kennedy Center Honors along with No Doubt, Norah Jones, Steven Tyler, James Taylor, and Mavis Staples. He sang a duet version of Maybe I'm Amazed with Norah Jones on December 5, 2010. Grohl played drums on the tracks Run with the Wolves and Stand Up on the Prodigy's 2009 album Invaders Must Die. In July 2009, it was revealed that Grohl was recording with Josh Homme and John Paul Jones as them Crooked Vultures. The trio performed their first show together on August 9, 2009, at Metro in Chicago. The band played their first UK gig on August 26, 2009, with a surprise appearance at Brixton Academy in London, supporting the Arctic Monkeys. The band released their debut album Them Crooked Vultures on November 16, 2009, in the UK and November 17, 2009, in the US. On October 23, 2010, Grohl performed with Tenacious D at BlizzCon. He appeared as the drummer for the entire concert, and a year later he returned with Foo Fighters and played another set there, this time as guitarist and vocalist. Also in 2010, Grohl helped write and performed on drums for Watch This with guitarist Slash and Duff McKagan on Slash's self-titled album that also included many other famous artists. In October 2011, Grohl temporarily joined Cage the Elephant as a replacement on tour after drummer Jared Champion's appendix burst. Grohl directed a documentary entitled Sound City, which is about the Van Nuys studio of the same name where Nevermind was recorded, that shut down its music operations in 2011. In 2012, following the departure of Joey Castillo from Queens of the Stone Age, Grohl performed on some tracks as drummer on their 2013 album, Like Clockwork. At the December 12, Sandy benefit concert, Paul McCartney joined Grohl and the surviving members of Nirvana to perform Cut Me Some Slack, a song later recorded for the Sound City soundtrack. In what was regarded as a Nirvana reunion with McCartney as a stand-in for Kurt Cobain, this was the first time in 18 years that the three had played alongside each other. Grohl delivered a keynote speech at the 2013 South by Southwest Conference in Austin, Texas, U.S. on the morning of March 14. Lasting just under an hour, the speech covered Grohl's musical life from his youth through to his role with the Foo Fighters and emphasized the importance of each individual's voice, regardless of who the individual is. There is no right or wrong, there is only your voice. What matters most is that it's your voice. Cherish it. Respect it. Nurture it. Challenge it. Respect it. Grohl said during the speech that Psy's Gangnam Style was one of his favorite songs of the past decade. He also referenced Edgar Winter's instrumental Frankenstein as the song that made him want to become a musician. On November 6, 2013, Grohl played drums at the 2013 CMA Awards, replacing drummer Chris Fryer for country music band Zac Brown Band. The band debuted their new song Day for the Dead. Grohl also produced Zac Brown Band's EP The Grohl Sessions, Volume 1. Grohl also featured on drums for new indie hip-hop band RDGL-DGRN. He worked with them closely on their EP. The group asked fellow Northern Virginia native Grohl, who was filming his Sound City documentary, to drum on I Love Lamp. Grohl agreed and played drums for the entire record, with the exception of Million Fans, which features a sampled break beat. Grohl, a fan of theatrical Swedish metal band Ghost, produced their EP If You Have Ghost. He was also featured in a number of songs on the EP. Grohl played rhythm guitar for the song If You Have Ghosts, and drums on I'm a Marionette as well as Waiting for the Night. According to a member of Ghost, Grohl has appeared live in concert with the band wearing the same identity-concealing outfit that the rest of the band usually wears. In September, the All-Star Covers album by the Alice Cooper-led Hollywood Vampires supergroup was released and features Grohl playing drums on the medley 1/Jump Into the Fire. On August 10, 2018, Grohl released Play, a solo recording lasting over 22 minutes. A mini-documentary accompanied it. Between August and November 2020, Grohl performed in an online drum battle with 10-year-old drummer and YouTube celebrity Nandi Bushell, who had challenged Grohl after previously covering songs from Nirvana and Foo Fighters. Grohl had previously been impressed by her talent and energy. After going back and forth with Bushell a few times, he jokingly conceded victory to her, and later wrote and performed a song in her honor. Later, after speaking to Bushell over a video chat, Grohl offered to have Bushell perform with the Foo Fighters on stage, an offer he made good on when she appeared with the band during their August 26, 2021 show at the LA Forum, where she performed drums on Everlong as the show's finale. The videos of the drum battle received tens of millions of views. During Hanukkah of 2020, Grohl collaborated with Greg Kurstin to release previously recorded covers of songs by Jewish artists, one per night. This continued in 2021. On October 5, 2021, Grohl's memoir The Storyteller, Tales of Life and Music was published by Day Street Books. Grohl developed a thrash metal record for a fictional band named Dream Widow who self-destructed 25 years ago, as developed for a horror comedy movie titled Studio 666. Grohl worked to create the Dream Widow album and aimed to release it at the same time as the film, on February 25, 2022. On March 25, 2022, the self-titled Dream Widow EP was released to digital streaming services featuring 8 tracks ranging from thrash, death, and extreme metal. The EP also featured Rami Jaffe, Jim Rhoda, and Oliver Roman. On June 25, 2022, Grohl duetted with Paul McCartney when he headlined the Glastonbury Festival. It was his first performance since the death of Taylor Hawkins earlier in the year. Television. Since his first appearance in 1992, Grohl has been a musical guest on Saturday Night Live 14 times, more than any other musician. He has appeared with Nirvana, Foo Fighters, Them Crooked Vultures, Mick Jagger, and Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Grohl has also appeared in several sketches on SNL. On October 13, 2007, he performed in the SNL digital short People Getting Punched Just Before Eating. On February 6, 2010, he appeared as a middle-aged punk rock drummer reuniting the group Crisis of Conformity after 25 years in a skit later on in the episode. On March 9, 2011, he appeared in the SNL digital short Helen Mirren's Magical Bosom and the sketch Bongo's Clown Room. In August 2000, Grohl voiced Daniel Dotson, an egotistical art instructor, in Is It Fall Yet?, the first of 2 film-length installments for MTV's animated series Daria. In mid-2010, Grohl added his name to the list of contributing rock star voice cameos for Cartoon Network's heavy metal parody/tribute show, Metalocalypse. He voiced the controversial Syrian dictator, Abdul Malik, in the Season 3 finale, Double Booked Cloak. In February 2013, Grohl filled in as host of Chelsea Lately for a week. Guests included Elton John, who disclosed on the E! Show that he would appear with Grohl on the next Queens of the Stone Age album. Grohl had previously hosted the show during the first week of December 2012 as part of Celebrity Guest Host Week. On May 20, 2015, David Letterman selected Grohl and the Foo Fighters to play Everlong as the last musical guest on the final episode of Late Show with David Letterman. Letterman stated that he considered Everlong to be his favorite song and that he and the band were joined at the hip ever since the band cancelled tour dates to play his first show back from heart bypass surgery at his request. On December 1, 2015, Grohl appeared on an episode of The Muppets where he competed in a drum-off with Animal. Grohl appeared in the 50th anniversary season of Sesame Street in February 2019. On January 28, 2021, it was announced that the first authorized Dave Grohl documentary will be released via the Coda Collection. The documentary was released April 30, 2021, as What Drives Us. On October 8, 2021, Grohl was the guest storyteller on CBeebies Bedtime Story, reading a story based on the Beatles' song, Octopus's Garden. Filmmaking. Grohl directed the Foo Fighters music videos for Monkey Wrench, My Hero, All My Life, White Limo, and Rope, as well as all the music videos from the Sonic Highways and Concrete and Gold era. Outside of Foo Fighters, he also filmed the music video for Soundgardens by Crooked Steps. In 2013, Grohl produced and directed the documentary Sound City, about the history of the famed Sound City Studios recording studios in Van Nuys. The film, Grohl's feature-length directorial debut, premiered at the 2013 Sundance Film Festival. Accompanying the release of Sonic Highways, Grohl directed an 8-part documentary miniseries of the same name that chronicles the album's development and recording across 8 different American cities. It premiered on HBO on October 17, 2014. In 2021, Grohl directed What Drives Us, a feature-length documentary on van touring. It was released on April 30, 2021, on the Coda Collection via Amazon Prime. Cal Jam. Inspired by California Jam, to celebrate the release of Foo Fighters' 9th studio album Concrete and Gold and begin their North American tour, Cal Jam 17, a music festival curated by Grohl and Foo Fighters, was held from October 6-7, 2017 at Glen Helen Amphitheater, with 27,800 attendees, 3,100 campers, and 9 arrests. Cal Jam 18 was held October 5-6, 2018 in San Bernardino, California, which featured the Foo Fighters and a Nirvana reunion. Musicianship and equipment. Grohl cannot read music and plays only by ear. Grohl's 2 primary guitars are based on the Gibson ES-335. His primary recording guitar is an original cherry red Gibson Trini Lopez Standard that he bought in the early 1990s because he liked the look of the diamond-shaped sound holes. He also has an original Pelham Blue Trini Lopez from 1965 which he bought from a doctor in the UK. Grohl's primary stage guitar is his signature model Pelham Blue Gibson DG335, which was designed by Gibson based on the Trini Lopez standard specs, but in a different color and with a stop tailpiece instead of the Trini Lopez's trapeze tailpiece. He also has another signature guitar called the Memphis Dave Grohl ES-335 in silver finish that is otherwise similar to the DG335. His primary acoustic guitar is a black Elvis Presley model Gibson Dove. Grohl's drum kit, as designed by Drum Workshop, features 5 different sized toms ranging from 5x8 inches to 16x18 inches, a 19-inch crash cymbal, 2 20-inch crash cymbals, an 18-inch china cymbal, a 24-inch ride cymbal, and a standard kick drum, snare drum, and hi-hat. Advocacy, philanthropy, and views. In May 2006, Grohl sent a note of support to the 2 trapped miners in the Beaconsfield mine collapse in Tasmania, Australia, who had survived the initial rockfall. In the initial days following the collapse, one of the men requested an iPod with the Foo Fighters album In Your Honor to be sent to them. Grohl's note read, in part, "Though I'm halfway around the world right now, my heart is with you both, and I want you to know that when you come home, there's 2 tickets to any Fuss show, anywhere, and 2 cold beers waiting for yous. Deal." In October 2006, one of the miners took up his offer, joining Grohl for a drink after a Foo Fighters acoustic concert at the Sydney Opera House. Grohl wrote an instrumental piece for the meeting, which he pledged to include on the band's next album. The song, Ballad of the Beaconsfield Miners, appears on Foo Fighters' 2007 release Echoes, Silence, Patience and Grace, and features Keiki King. Grohl is an advocate for LGBT rights. He has worn a white knot ribbon, a symbol of support for same-sex marriage, to various events. When questioned about the knot, he responded, "I believe in love and I believe in equality and I believe in marriage equality." Grohl's gay rights activism dates back to the early 1990s, when Nirvana performed at a benefit to raise money to fight Oregon Ballot Measure 9, which forbade governments in Oregon from promoting or facilitating homosexuality. Grohl has also participated in 2 counter-protests against the Westboro Baptist Church for their anti-gay stance, once by performing Keep It Clean on the back of a flatbed truck and most recently by Rickrolling them. Grohl is an advocate for gun control. Shortly after the 2002 DC sniper attacks ended, he stated in an interview that the attacks were an indication of the direction the country's heading in if we don't get tougher with gun laws. He further stated, "People need to realize that our country has to get tougher on gun laws, it just does, and I grew up in suburban Virginia going hunting in season. I grew up with a firearm myself. But I'd be willing to give it up, if everyone else would." In a 2008 interview, Grohl said he had never taken cocaine, heroin, or speed, and that he had stopped smoking cannabis and taking LSD at the age of 20. He said, "I've seen people die. It ain't easy being young, but that stuff doesn't make it any easier." He contributed to a 2009 anti-drug video for the BBC. He has described himself as a coffee addict who drinks an average of 6 cups of coffee every morning. In 2009, he was admitted to a hospital with chest pains caused by a caffeine overdose. Grohl supported Barack Obama's 2012 presidential campaign and performed My Hero at the 2012 Democratic National Convention in Charlotte, North Carolina. Foo Fighters supported Joe Biden's 2020 presidential campaign and played at the Celebrating America concert on the day of Biden's inauguration in 2021. Personal life. In 1994, Grohl married Jennifer Lee Youngblood, a photographer from Grosse Pointe, Michigan. They separated in December 1996 and divorced in 1997. On August 2, 2003, he married Jordan Bloom. They reside in Los Angeles and have 3 children, named Violet May, Harper Willow, and Ophelia Saint. With a fortune of $260 million at the time, Grohl was estimated by a 2012 Stereogum article to be the 3rd wealthiest drummer in the world, behind Ringo Starr and Phil Collins. In a June 2011 interview, Grohl revealed that he was going deaf in his left ear due to decades of performing on stage. During his appearance on The Howard Stern Show in February 2022, he stated that he suffers from hearing loss and that this has an impact on both his daily life and life as a musician. His tinnitus has forced him to red lips for about 20 years, a situation which became more difficult when people began wearing face masks during the COVID-19 pandemic. As for producing music, he refuses to use in-ear monitors despite their ability to protect his ears because it removes from the natural atmosphere sound so cannot hear bandmates. He said that his ears are still tuned into certain frequencies, meaning still able to pick up on minute sonic details even down to the slightest differences between cymbal crashes. Honors. In August 2009, Grohl was given the key to the city of Warren, Ohio, his birthplace, and performed the songs Everlong, Times Like These, and My Hero. A roadway in downtown Warren named David Grohl Alley has been dedicated to him with murals by local artists. Grohl's hometown of Warren unveiled gigantic 902-pound drumsticks in 2012 to honor him. According to The Hollywood Reporter, the massive pair broke the Guinness World Record. The record-breaking drumsticks were shown to the public for the first time on July 7 during a concert at the Warren Amphitheater. On November 11, 2014, Grohl joined Bruce Springsteen and Zac Brown on stage at the Concert for Valor in Washington, D.C. to support U.S. troops and veterans. Grohl's first solo Rolling Stone cover story was published on December 4, 2014. Discography. Filmography. Film. Television. Since his first appearance in 1992, Grohl has been a musical guest on Saturday Night Live 14 times, more than any other musician. He has appeared with Nirvana, Foo Fighters, Them Crooked Vultures, Mick Jagger, and Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Grohl has also appeared in several sketches on SNL. On October 13, 2007, he performed in the SNL digital short People Getting Punched Just Before Eating. On February 6, 2010, he appeared as a middle-aged punk rock drummer reuniting the group Crisis of Conformity after 25 years in a skit later on in the episode. On March 9, 2011, he appeared in the SNL digital short Helen Mirren's Magical Bosom and the sketch Bongo's Clown Room. In August 2000, Grohl voiced Daniel Dotson, an egotistical art instructor, in Is It Fall Yet?, the first of two film-length installments for MTV's animated series Daria. In mid-2010, Grohl added his name to the list of contributing rock star voice cameos for Cartoon Network's heavy metal parody/tribute show, Metalocalypse. He voiced the controversial Syrian dictator, Abdul Malik in the Season 3 finale, Double Booked Cloak. In February 2013, Grohl filled in as host of Chelsea Lately for a week. Guests included Elton John, who disclosed on the E! Show that he would appear with Grohl on the next Queens of the Stone Age album. Grohl had previously hosted the show during the first week of December 2012 as part of Celebrity Guest Host Week. On May 20, 2015, David Letterman selected Grohl and the Foo Fighters to play Everlong as the last musical guest on the final episode of Late Show with David Letterman. Letterman stated that he considered Everlong to be his favorite song and that he and the band were joined at the hip ever since the band cancelled tour dates to play his first show back from heart bypass surgery at his request. On December 1, 2015, Grohl appeared on an episode of The Muppets where he competed in a drum-off with Animal. Grohl appeared in the 50th anniversary season of Sesame Street in February 2019. On January 28, 2021, it was announced that the first authorized Dave Grohl documentary will be released via the Coda Collection. The documentary was released April 30, 2021, as What Drives Us. On October 8, 2021, Grohl was the guest storyteller on CBeebies Bedtime Story, reading a story based on the Beatles' song, Octopus's Garden.